listened and heard. Some of them I knew, some of them I didn't know. But today I think it is important as well that music plays a good part in rising people's way of thinking the same way Nina Simone and the other artists have done. And the documentary is first time I'm watching it, and it has so many layers, I don't even know where to start. And like you said, I'm still processing it. But as a Congolese person, is something that is compulsory watching.
I think one thing that strikes me the most is no matter, and I always say this, no matter what you think you might know in terms of colonization, slavery, whether it's from Congo or other nations and other peoples who are colonized, you have no idea the depth and the length of and the extent to which colonization harmed our people, right? And each time, and I consider myself, the more I learn, it's that age-old saying, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know, right? Like, I thought I was relatively well informed.
Yeah, there are quite a few, a lot of the things that Nikita Khrushchev, as always, USSR, as he used to be known, has always been depicted as the enemy, as the one who always done the wrong thing, but watching it is completely different. I've always known that Lumumba was never a communist. I always believed that he was, like you said, an African, that he wanted the continent to be free, that he wanted Congo to be freed. That I knew in those words. We didn't get to see much of him talking. It was mostly every other actors talking on behalf of the Congolese people, on behalf of Africa, and that is powerful. That is also an opportunity that we all have today.
So talk to me a little bit about, you mentioned Lumumba there. Talk to me a little bit about his impact, not just in terms of Congolese history and politics or African history and politics, but also in terms of the world. You see a lot of people who were involved and invested in the outcome of Congo's future, even until now, right? So what impact do you think Lumumba had on that, and what is his legacy?
Well, he was murdered 17th of January 1961, and he only had 7 months to help rule a newly independent country. And we can see throughout the history how he was actually stopped the Congo to be the powerhouse that he could have been. At the time, already, he was influential. At the table ronde, round table, they wanted Lumumba to be there. And he is his party, the NMC, he was the only party that united all Congolese. With Kasavubu, he was mostly the Bakongo. When you look at Chombe, mostly people from Katanga and so forth. With Ilunga, Bolia Chombe, it was mostly tribal parties. But with Lumumba, it was for all Congolese. And later on today, the impact that he's had with the country itself is still impactful in a way where we aspire to have a better country, to be in control of what we had. The message that he left with so many of Congolese people is to seek freedom, to want to be free, and to have that ambition to be free. And that ambition doesn't just limit itself to monetary gain, to be wealthy or to be well off. That ambition is also to make our leaders accountable of everything that's going on. As much as we can point the fingers to imperialism, is also important that we need to know that we are also responsible for some of the mistakes that we are making. So his impact, for those who have read the speech that he did on the Independence Day, the 30th of June, and the work that he's been doing then and prior to that, he still has an impact in today. And the proof, 80 years nearly on, we're still talking about Patrice Lumumba.
Yeah, and I think that Independence Day speech is so powerful as well, because I'm not sure, it wasn't entirely kind of depicted in this, but he was not supposed to give a speech, but also it was a speech that he wrote literally within the 5 minutes of hearing the Belgian King Baudouin speak, and essentially be so condescending towards Congolese people. There was a spirit within Lumumba that rose up and spoke. You had to say
something, because independence was not just something that was given. It is something that the Congolese fought for. We wanted to, over the years, the Belgians treated the Congolese people as children. That paternalism, politics or way of treating the Africans, the Congolese people, and our parents, my parents, seen our grandparents, our ancestors, seen it from 1885, from when the continent was carved out, and that continent was carved out because of Leopold II, King of Belgians, and the country was set up more for business purposes. It was always for the interest of the Western powers, and that is why Lumumba has to say, no, we fought for it. Blood, sweat, blood, and tears. That's why you cannot just say. And even in the part that Roi Baudouin, King Baudouin was talking there, you sense the same kind of tone that recently the King of Belgium, I think is Albert, King Albert, if I'm not mistaken, came to the Congo a couple of years ago, and he had the same tones. That's why I say it's very sad watching it, that things have now changed, and it's very sad.
I think in some ways it's almost like there's two tales. On the one side, it is quite sad, right? In that, we are how many decades on, and there seems to be no progress or little progress. But on the other hand, I take a lot of kind of pride and empowerment from this as well. I think about the resilience of my Congolese ancestors, right? To be able to withstand colonialism, to be able to withstand slavery, because even in terms of Congo, when they talk about the Congolese project, right, and how King Leopold essentially was given Congo during the Berlin Conference in 1885. So I visited the Royal African Society Museum in Belgium last year, and I've been a few times before, and there's been a lot of conversation around that. But one thing I saw this time that wasn't there before was that there were artifacts stolen out of Congo that predated the 1885 period. So that went back as early as 1800s, 1835, etc. So at the point in which it's official doesn't mean that's when the colonial project started. So what we think we know, the extent to which the exploitation happened, goes far beyond our current understanding. And for me, I think about the resilience of our ancestors. I think about how generation upon generation, and if you think about our parents' generation, who were born under colonialism, right? And we are technically the first generation to be born free, if you will, whatever that means. Maybe we can speak about that afterwards. I think there is a movement towards something, right?
That's right.
And so we're seeing now, for example, in Burkina Faso, you have the legacy of someone like Thomas Sankara, who was very similar to Lumumba. And now you have the interim president, Ibrahim Traore, who's making a lot of changes and being very vocal in the Pan-African sense about neocolonialism, about the position that France occupies. What kind of hope or ambition or message do you have for the future, for future leaders? What do you hope will happen in the years to come?
I think that seed that Thomas Sankara has, or even Ibrahim Traoré now, and the same one that Lumumba has had, Kwame Nkrumah, Sékou Touré, and even with Maya Angelou and Blois, André Blois. Sorry, sometimes I tend to say most of the names in French as well. And it's the same spirit that a lot of Africans do have. Through the Congolese Action Youth Platform, the organization I'm part of, we have different ways to actually help the people back home. We have initiated a campaign which is called Genocast, the genocide for economic gains, because we believe that what's happening in the Congo is a genocide because of what we have in the land. So we chose a date which is the 2nd of August, and every year since 2013 we've been commemorating that day. And only in a couple of years, in 2023, the government has recognized that day and is in the way to becoming an official national day where we can commemorate everyone that was killed, Congolese people that were killed because of the resources that we have in the Congo. And we also hope to have justice for the people that were hurt, not just with the Congo War recently, but also back to Leopold II as well, and to have a monument and museum built to that effect. There is a project that we also part of that my colleague Mimi Wintekate is doing in Goma, in the eastern of Congo.
Sorry, Mimi's here by the way. Mimi, do you mind putting your hand up? Just in case if people want to speak to people afterwards and have any more questions, I highly recommend connecting with people. So I'm sure Mimi will be open to speaking to people. I'm sorry if I put you on the spot. You're my big sis, so you need to hear your voice.
Yeah, because what she's doing is very important. That Goma appeal is not just sending money to people, or sending donation for clothes and so forth. But what she's been able to do is to empower those women to then start entrepreneurship. So the money that goes there, they can then find a way for themselves to not rely on a husband or not to rely on anything else, but to their own resources and to then feed the family. And I think that's very, very important. It's not just Western Union is one of those companies as well, many other companies where we send money back home. But it's more of a hands up than hands out, so to speak. So the future of Africa is in our own hands, and in the diaspora we have to realize that we have the power to change things the same way that we see in the documentary, whether they were African Americans or Africans or in Europe. They had friends of the Congo who have done something, and I believe being all humans, and even Ibrahim Traoré called that Macron asking him if he was human. Yes, I believe that we all are. There's no aliens in here, I hope not. And that we will all want a better continent, a better Congo that would then help the whole world to be in a better position. I believe so.
Yeah, I fully agree with you, because that's one thing I think we're not seeing or not as aware of these days, right? You hear Malcolm X talking about, the fact that talking to people, or Black Americans essentially, saying, you look Congolese, and drawing the similarities between their struggle over there and our struggle back home. And you have the international kind of collectivism with the Bandung Conference and people who were coming together to oppose imperialism. And it feels like there's a shift, right? There's a slow and gradual shift, although now we're dealing with other things. But I think oftentimes when we're just confined to the digital era where a lot of mixed messages can be sent out, we forget that there, on the ground, there is a collective unionization and kind of organization of people coming together. And I fundamentally believe that as the diaspora, we should lend our hands to people back home and not come in with a savior complex, which a lot of us sometimes tend to do, think that we're educated, we're this, we're that, so we can. I think people back home know what is needed. Congolese people know the answer.
100%. And to touch upon the digital media, which is more or less the same. Back then, they had subversive ways.
Yeah.
The CIA had their own ways to do it. And I feel sometimes with social media, they're also able to do the same. I'm not into any conspiracy.
I mean, it's not even a conspiracy anymore.
But at times on X,
Yeah.
do you feel that certain informations are being led in a certain way, and with algorithm and that kind of thing? So it's important to make the choices based on. Well, I encourage people to make choices based on what they know or who they are, and to find the good within them, rather than just following and listening to be swayed against their own strong beliefs, I'll say, or values, which is more important.
Absolutely. I think we've got about 10 minutes left, so we're going to open it up. If anyone's got any questions,